Welcome to Have Roots Will Travel. My name is Lisa Elvin Stoltari, and I'm delighted to welcome you back. If this is your first time, we welcome you to the channel. Have Roots Will Travel has been an amazing journey for me in the last year. I have been focusing my attention on Les Filles du Roi, the King's Daughters, and we're doing many biographies of each and every Fille du Roi who has descendants here in Quebec and in North America, actually. And let me introduce myself a little bit. I am a genealogist and a passionate traveler. I have a website called Have Roots Will Travel. I'm also on Facebook. If you have any ideas or questions, please feel free to email me at lisa@haverootswilltravel.com or post a comment below. Love to hear your comments. Also, please subscribe. Click on that notifications alert as well so you'll know that when I post new content, which right now is about twice a week. It may go to 3 times a week, depending on how fast I can get through all these. And with that, let's get started, shall we? So we begin at the beginning. Les Filles du Roi, the King's Daughter, was a program begun in 1663 by the intendant Jean Talon. Please have a look at the video that I've produced called The Program 2.0. It is part of the playlist. It will give you a kind of a what's what and who's who of the program and how it works. It gives you some background to that. So let's get started and see who is our Fille du Roi for this episode. Our Fille du Roi for the week is Anne Francoise Richard de Martin. So she's also known as, her last name is also known as Martin or Martin. So let's get to know Anne Francoise a little bit. Francoise was born in Orléans, which is a city of about 116,000 people today. It's located on the River Loire and is truly in the center of the Loire Valley. It's about 74 miles southwest of Paris. The Ile d'Orléans in Quebec, Canada, is named after Orléans in France, as well as Orléans, Ontario, and the former French colony, New Orleans, Louisiana. The city has existed since before 52 BC, when it was destroyed by Julius Caesar himself. Throughout its history, it was truly in the center of much of the commercial activity of this region, due to the river and its trading ability. If you know the story of the Maid of Orleans, otherwise known as Joan of Arc, who played such a heroic role during the siege of Orleans during the 100 Years' War, you know about this area. The University of Orleans was established in 1306 by Pope Clement himself. So this is kind of where she comes from. She's born in 1651. Her parents are Nicolas Richard and Madeleine Fournier. So you can see a little bit about how beautiful this area is. Also, the church where she would have been baptized is pictured on your right. And it kind of gives you an idea on the map where you would find this area if this is your ancestor. So Anne Francoise would have left for New France sometime in 1669, after her father's passing. She sailed on the Saint Jean-Baptiste. On June 30th, 1669 is when she disembarked in Quebec City and began her adventure. Well, Anne Francoise obviously had more than one suitor. There is evidence that she signed 2 other contracts before settling on her final groom. The first one she signed in December of 1669 with a man named François de Rajon. And 12 days later after that, she signed another contract with a fellow named Pierre Lavoie. Finally, 12 days after that, she signed and stayed with our groom, Pierre Campagnan. Pierre was born in 1646 in a small village of, which is also known as a commune, of Angoulême-sur-Mer, which is about 10 kilometers from the larger town of La Rochelle. Remember that Angoulême-sur-Mer, for those of you who do not speak French, means Angoulême of the sea. So it really is right on the sea, as you can see in the picture. The church where Pierre might have been baptized was built in the 10th century and redone by the 15th. Angoulême is truly a seaside community with many cultural and touristic things that people are drawn to, so it's definitely a place to that people visit. because of its beauty. His parents were Mathurin Campagna and Jacquette Suire. So let's have a look at his journey. So Pierre and his brother Matthias came to New France in approximately 1664, and they were indentured servants. So they would have had probably a 3-year contract before they were free to, be in New France on their own and get married and all that good stuff. So the boat they sailed on was Le Noir de Hollande, Holland Black, if you will. And this particular image is the 1666 census, where they are, both of them, the servants of a man named Denis Brière. So he and his brother would then fulfill their engagement and then move on and get married and establish a life. Unfortunately, we do not have a marriage record of where they were married. We do have the contract that was signed at a place called Cap Rouge, January 5th, 1670, but we have not yet traced the marriage record or the church where they would have been married, but obviously they were. So Francoise and Pierre would first settle at Sillery, Quebec. Let's talk a little bit about this town. Sillery is one of the boroughs now of Quebec City, but for well over 3 centuries, it was its own independent city. But in 2002, Sillery, along with several other small cities, was amalgamated into the larger region of Quebec City. It was first established as Canada's first Indian reserve, and it was named for St. Joseph. And the money for establishing the first settlement was provided by Noël Brulard de Sillery. Unfortunately, the native population fell victim to disease and other issues, and the reserve failed. The town was eventually named Sillery in honor of its benefactor and would become an important player in Quebec's lumber industry. On the upper left of your screen is a picture of Sillery's riverfront. I've included a map of where Sillery is, and also on the top right of how it became amalgamated within Quebec City in 2002 and is now one of those boroughs. On the bottom right is the Maison des Jésuites de Sillery, or the Jesuits' House of Sillery. A fort was created here in the mid-1600s and would have been present during Francoise and Pierre's time. This actual house was the one built after the fort burned down twice and dates from 1703 to 1730 for the construction of it. The place they settled down in is a tiny community of Saint-Augustin de Demarre. And this is an interesting place in Quebec, as actually 17 Fiji-Hawaii eventually would settle here. We will obviously be returning here again and again. Here's a little history. In 1647, Georges Juchereau, Lord of Moire, is given the seigneurie that includes the small village. By 1668, the territory begins to be occupied. It was then called Demarre. By 1671, a community mill was established at Lake Saint-Augustin by the son of the original lord, also named Georges Juchereau de la Ferté. By 1685, Paul Augustin Juchereau de Mar becomes the third seigneur of this community. The name of the parish most probably comes from his first name. In 1991, the establishment of this parish is recognized. Although there are no official documents that prove this date, it's the unofficial start of this parish. At this time, there were approximately only about 200 people living here, so it was very, very small, comparatively speaking, so very much in the wilderness. Let's have a look at Anne Francoise and Pierre's children. Marie-Anne would marry twice, but would not have any descendants. Louis would marry Madeleine Angélique Rabouin and have 5 children, all of whom made it to adulthood. Marguerite married Pierre Gourgeot and Edmond Guilbeault, but did not have any descendancies as well. Anne Francoise would die at 5 years of age. Françoise Paul married Louis Dubuc and would have 4 children, all of whom would make it to adulthood. Marie-Madeleine would marry Jean-Baptiste Diziel and would have 4 children, all of whom would make it. Jeanne would marry Etienne Amiot and would have 6 children, 5 of whom would make it to adulthood. In the middle of their lives, a horrible thing happened. Anne Francoise was attacked by a man named François Fleury, and Pierre would bring him up before the Conseil Souverain and charge him with beating his wife. We don't know the circumstances. We don't know what occurred. We don't know if it was rape. We have no knowledge, but we do know that the courts, favored Pierre and Anne Francoise's charge, and the man was eventually fined £100 and court costs as well. It's just a remarkable thing. We talk about violence against women today, and we can see clearly that it was always present. And one important thing to note is that women did have supporters, and the husband would absolutely fight for his wife's honor and her protection as well. So I think that is an important component of their story. More is known about their lives, but we do know that sometime between 1704 and 1711, Pierre would pass away. He would be buried at Saint Augustin de Mar. Anne Francoise herself would live until 1719, until the ripe old age of 78, which is a remarkable achievement. And she's also buried at Saint Augustin de Mar. Now, they would have been married 34 years. At that earliest amount, which is a fairly remarkable amount of time to have spent together, and to have produced 8 children, and to have overcome the obviously traumatic incident of Anne's attack. The legacy of this family continues as we have the Association des Familles Campagnoles, which obviously, if this is your descendancy, you must investigate and check that out. Either join or at least explore this fabulous website. I also want to point out that this video was a viewer request. I don't have it in my files. Anne and Pierre actually, out of this line, had 60 descendants by 1729. Which is a smaller amount than I have seen, but it is remarkable because obviously there are descendants, and the viewer that requested this one, this is her line, and it has sustained itself into the 21st century, which is truly a tribute to them. So I want to point you to some resources for further research. We have La Société des Filles du Roi, which is an amazing society that I belong to. I also happen to be the membership chairperson at this moment. Absolutely have a look at that. You don't have to be a member to see some of the things, but obviously to go more in depth, you need to become a member. You can become an associate member or a full-fledged member and get one of those wonderful parchment paper things where you can frame and it tells you your descendancy. One of these days I'll show you mine that I have. Les Filles du Roi Descendants is a Facebook group that I have come to really, really appreciate. Just amazing people on that. Have a look at that if you use Facebook. And the third site is a website called Migration, which should be called Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Les Filles du Roi. Truly remarkable site. Have a look at that. And with that, we bid you adieu, and we say goodbye and thank you to Anne Francoise Richard dit Martin and her beloved Pierre Campagna. We thank them for their contribution. They settled in Saint Augustin de Mar, and that was truly a remarkable place to be in terms of just actually founding it and being there at that time. So if this is your descendancy line, you can certainly be proud of their contribution and what they endured as a couple. So with that, I thank you, and we will see you on the next episode. Until then, au revoir.